Hello and a very warm welcome to all the viewers of Crypto TV. This is Manoj Dara. Technological advancements in the digital space have revolutionized every aspect of our lives, from shopping to collaboration with colleagues to keeping it in touch with friends to entertainment to managing our finances. Since the dawn of internet, identity management has been a key concern with billions of dollars being spent on usability, security, and privacy. The identity and access management market is expected to grow from $8 billion in 2016 to $16 billion by 2022, representing a 15% CAGR. Despite this huge investment, managing digital identities continues to be plagued by 3 C's: cumbersome, costly, and challenging. To understand the aspects of digital identity in detail, we have invited a strong panel for you. Our first guest is an author, blockchain influencer, Tech GCPIT leader. Let me introduce you to Devjani Mohanty. Ma'am, welcome on the show.
Thank you so much.
Our second guest is Ravikant Agrawal, Vice President Strategy at Polygon. Ravikant sir, welcome on Crypto TV.
Thank you for having me.
And our third guest is Musheer Ahmed, founder and MD at FinStep Asia, and he is also an advisor to Stellar Development Foundation. Sir, welcome on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Our fourth guest is Prasanna Lohar, Chief Innovation Officer at DCB Bank and a founding member of India Blockchain Forum. Prasanna ji, welcome to the show as well.
Very good morning, Manoj and Crypto TV team. Looking forward.
So my first question is to Devjani, ma'am. So what is digital identity? And if you can just explain this for our viewers with some examples. And what's the issue with the traditional identity to begin with?
Well, digital identity is any data, any personal data that can identify someone online. So it is something like your user ID or password or biometrics, whatever you are using for identifying yourself. It can be used for registration, getting access to online data, authorization, authentication, even deregistration. So for any kind of business relationship, you need digital identity.
So Ravi sir, what's your opinion about digital identity? If you can just explain this for our viewers to begin with.
When we talk about digital identity, we are talking about a set of validated digital credentials that are used in the digital world, right? So this digital credentials could be different types of attributes or activities that uniquely represent an individual, right? So it could be your unique identifier, your vaccination code, your biometric, your social media activities, right? I think this is getting very interesting in the identity space, where now we have certain capabilities where even without disclosing some of these identifiers, you can still prove yourself. So if I'm an Indian resident, I don't need to showcase my passport. How can I still do that? Those are the innovations that are happening in the identity space. How can we represent in the digital world?
Lovely. Musheer sir, what's your opening remarks on the digital identity? If you can just highlight that, sir.
I think digital identity is becoming very native, right? So we are moving from a world which was heavily paper-based. And so we carried our passport, we carried our license on us physically. And now we are moving to a world, especially in India, driven by the India Stack and other digital platforms, to a digital identity. So your Aadhaar is digital. You could technically, in many places, like I'm here in Hong Kong, I check in just using my ID card. I don't have to use my passport. So a lot of other things that digital identities, it's where we are moving from a paper-based identity process to a digital-based identity process.
Few keywords which I've picked up, Prasanna ji, is paperless. And there is a lot of work that has been done in this segment. What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I think great views by Devjani, Ravikant and Musheer out there. So I think if you go back 30, 40 years back, right, life was so easy, right? So no need of any identity. It was just a single PC and use all of your accounting operations. But now as we move forward for a network-based application down there, now social media, I think that's how we need to look at digital identity, your own single source of the truth. How do you really prove yourself? Digitally you are present and you have a unique identity. I think that's a game all about, and it has a different form factor, as our experts will explain here onwards. Yeah.
So as we are talking about digital identity, let's begin with the first question, technical question to Ravi, is what is self-sovereign identity? If you can just explain this. And how does digital identity provide trust to external partners like clients, government organizations? If you can just highlight that as well.
Sure. So I think when we talk about self-sovereign identity, primarily we are talking about identity where a user is in control of their identity. He controls in terms of who has the access to those set of information. In case if the user wanted to restrict the access to certain party, he should be able to do that. In fact, if there are reasons for him to withdraw the access, he should be able to even control that. So I think self-sovereign identity is a new set of innovation where we are trying to give control back to the users. When you're talking about trust, I think this is a very fundamental concepts related to digital identity. In my view, there are four different pillars that one should be talking when we talk about a trust for identity. How can we have verification and authentication with a high degree of assurance?
Fantastic.
Second one, it should be unique. Third one, it should be driven with the user consent. And the last but not the least is protecting user privacy and ensuring that there is a control maintained by the user to protect his own data.
Right. Ma'am, what's your opinion about, as we are talking about a broader aspect as far as digital identity and the road ahead, what's your opinion on this?
Well, I mean, definitely we are moving towards identity which is more decentralized in nature. Currently, we have already seen that how FIDO has acquired the market. But FIDO is a little different from decentralized identity, especially self-sovereign identity. So these models are different. But in future, I would also like to see that it's moving more towards confidential computing model. That means that you are not sharing the data even in the way that currently we are doing in self-sovereign identity. You are not sharing even the data in dynamic way. You are doing it through some third party, and those organizations who are using your data can use only in the way that you want them to use.
Fantastic.
They cannot even pass it on further to other organizations. So confidential computing is somewhere in the picture in the road ahead.
So, Musheer sir, as we are talking about digital identity, and as Debjani ma'am has already highlighted about the privacy factor as well, what's your opinion on this?
With digital identity, you can, you are giving away your identity in the sense that anybody can then transfer it, right? As much as Prasanna was mentioning, you would carry your passports to show it, there's a Xerox, somebody to actually use it later, it's much more harder for transferring those documents. For the digital, you can, easily, it's portable. It's the positive of it and the negative. So you have to provide strong security for such instances. So I think the portability of digital identity is a great element. And then as we go and talk more about how blockchain can be used to protect using different layers, including permission layers, then you can, make effective use of digital identity with protection and privacy.
Prasanna ji, as we're talking about digital identity, blockchain ka use nahi ho, ऐसा हो नहीं सकता, and this is actually a link, between a broader audience as well.
Yeah, I think what we have seen in last 20-25 years with the rise of internet since 93-95, a lot of business models and are dependent upon internet. But what internet doesn't give, something like a confidentiality or a data transparency, data integrity, or a trust aspect, which typically people say these days, I think blockchain is the internet 2.0, and which will really surpass all those challenges. I go with what Ravikant said about self-sovereign identity, right? Typically, a strong verification followed by uniqueness of that identity mechanism, followed by the data privacy, and the last but not the least, the consent. That's how I go with Debjani ma'am. I think consent management can be really built very well on self-sovereign, or you can talk about a good digital identity with the help of a blockchain. Yeah.
So my next question is to Musheer sir, is as we are talking about, as Prasanna has highlighted about concept management, so what will be, in that aspect, what will be the role of DIDs in self-sovereign digital identity, if you can just highlight that?
Yeah, I think they play hand in hand, right? When you look at self-sovereign identity, it's a form of DID, where you as a owner, you have full ownership of your identity. You will then share it on a consent basis. So let's assume I need to share with, I'm taking a loan, say from Bajaj Finance as an example, right? And then I need to share my date of birth. So I can share it with them. It could be only for them, they can have access only to verify it through the blockchain, and then that could close, right? So they no longer have access, they've verified it and it's done. So a bit like I take my passport to the bank, they see my passport, they verify it's original, and then I take my passport back. They no longer have access to it, and then they verify, the person there says, I've verified it. which is all being done on the software on the blockchain. So through this, you can actually be able to manage your consent layers in terms of what data you want to provide, whom you want to provide it to, and you can track. This is the most important thing. A lot of times, Devjani ji mentioned this as well. You don't have tracking of who has your identity and your data, right? You may give it to one party, they have fine print saying this can be shared with our partners, with regulators, and it can go on and on, right? The Cambridge Analytica is a classic example. So, over 4 billion people have been, their identities have been hacked or been targeted globally. So I think this is an important element, is you then know who is having access, because you're owning that identity and the access to it. So nobody can get access unless you allow them to have that access.
So Ravi, a few keywords I've picked up, what Musheer said, I have already highlighted, is users can select what kind of information and how much information they want to pass on. So what's your opinion on this?
So certainly, I think that's going to be the fundamental difference when we are talking about the self-sovereign identity. I think that is going to be fundamentally changing. User controlling their data, user maintaining the privacy to the level they wanted to, provide the access for. So it's going to be fundamentally crucial. We must have here the directional change that previously Facebook, now Meta, has taken for their, big platform Facebook. Right. So they are now concentrating on privacy as the key concept for the next few years.
Sure.
Right. That has given an idea about how important privacy become for the users.
So, ma'am, as we are talking about digital identity and privacy is actually the point which we are discussing. What's your opinion about the role of DIDs, in digital identity? If you can just highlight that.
Yeah, using digital identity, you can share your data in traditional way. That means you can share all your data, or you can share in a selective disclosure mode. We already discussed about it. Or you can share it in a zero knowledge proof way, where you can just say that, you can prove cryptographically that whatever information I'm providing is true or not. That means, let's say that you want to check that you want to assure somebody that you are an adult. So you don't need to reveal your date of birth to somebody for doing that. So you can just cryptographically compare your date of birth with someone who is recently 18, and you can prove that you are an adult. Or the similar kind of check can be done for salary, like when we apply for a loan, let's say, that then we have to provide our salary, right? So we don't need to do that. So the bank, it would be happy enough to get assurance that our salary is in a particular range, not exactly what is the salary. So those kind of checks you can also do with the decentralized identity architecture.
Perfect. So Prasanna ji, as we are talking about few keywords, yet again, as we are talking about, how much users can share an information with the other party, but there is something, which ma'am is highlighting about is how you can prove your data is correct.
Yeah, I think that's how the power of ZKP man was speaking about. And at the same time, what we could see, the way we have created our identity system followed by digital identity system, it might go under some river, right? Say example, in India stack, and we have UIDI. And on top of it, we are now building a consent layer. Typically, I think I will not be surprised somebody says, yeah, let's build it on blockchain, where we have an opportunity to share something as a part of those 14, 15 parameters. I can just share one of them that may be for a time bound. I think that's the beauty all about digital identity, self-serving identity, and touched upon on blockchain kind of a technology. Yeah.
So, as we are talking about digital identity, my next question is to Devjani ma'am is, a UK-based platform offers customers onboarding through digital identity.
You're talking about True, right? So True is a identity ecosystem, a decentralized identity ecosystem.
So the digital identity for various platforms, as we are talking about, and so you think that the future of apps will allow access through digital identity only?
Yes.
So my question is to everyone. To begin with, we will start with Devjani ma'am.
Yeah, I think it's not only digital. We have to think about various different aspects. Like, let's say today you ask me to create an architecture where this privacy is also possible, and portability is also possible. So many different things are possible. But is it something that people can use Is it something that people from every part of the society can use and every corner of the world can use? That also we have to think about. So when you say digital, it also should have some components of physical. So like, let's say that I'll talk about True, that is a decentralized identity system in UK, using which the healthcare professionals, because in UK they work on a rotation basis, so using that identity, they can prove who they are to different hospitals while working in rotation. So that can work on a physical basis and as well a digital basis also. So that can be use cases where there could be scenarios where even if, let's say, the technology is good enough, but it is not something that people who are elderly, let's say, or not
All
that
right.
tech savvy can use. So we have to think about so many different aspects of it. So we have to come up with an architecture, with a solution that everybody can use. So that is something we are still working on.